Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Hunter and Scout Buffalo Bill Cody was already a legendary Wild West figure, known for rifle skill and courage in buffalo hunts. His fame grew quickly, leading him to create the famous Wild West show, which turned frontier adventures into popular spectacle. For many, he represented the bold and adventurous spirit seen as normal in that era. Seth Kinman, a skilled hunter of the Old West, was known for his abilities. He had the honor of meeting Andrew Johnson. He decided to give the president something unique and special by making a truly remarkable chair for him. It was made with elk antlers and bear hide, giving it a rustic and striking look. In the Wild West, bold acts like those of Pearl Hart were not rare. After failing at mining, she held up a stagecoach to help her ill mother. Disguised in men's clothing, she was caught and convicted, becoming one of the few remembered female outlaws of that period. In New Mexico Territory, Billy the Kid took part in cattle thefts, gunfights, and land disputes during a local war between factions. The young outlaw became a common figure in stories of conflict, movement, and resource fights, elements many in the Wild West lived as routine. The struggle for power and survival on the edge of the law was part of frontier normal life. Even in the harsh world of the Wild West, Jesse James also lived the role of father and husband. The photograph shows his children, Jesse James Jr. and Mary Susan James, born in Nashville under false names to protect the family. The visual style of the West took shape. Wild West clothing stood out for practicality: wide hats, leather boots, and durable outfits. Over time, the bowler hat, popular among travelers, gave way to the sombrero, and from it came the iconic cowboy hat, a symbol that crossed generations. Among bars and inns, the Table Bluff Hotel and Saloon, built in 1852 in California, became a meeting point for travelers and pioneers. Run by Seth Kinman, who once played a violin made of mule hide for President Abraham Lincoln, it symbolized the bold and creative spirit of the time. With central medical care far away, doctors traveled by wagon or horseback to serve isolated towns. Treating illness and wounds in minimal conditions was normal in the Wild West. The ability to improvise was as essential as a scalpel or antiseptic. During the Wild West, the hat was an essential part of clothing. At first, the bowler hat was most popular among settlers and travelers. Over time, the sombrero gained space among cowboys for being more practical, inspiring the classic cowboy hat that became one of the greatest symbols of the American West. After the legendary gunfight, the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona, was destroyed by a large fire in 1882. Flames consumed much of the town, but rebuilding began almost at once. In the Wild West, urban fires were common, and starting over from nothing was daily life in wooden frontier towns. Personal stories also marked this era, like that of Olive Oatman, captured in Arizona Territory in 1851. After years with the Mojave people, she returned to society with a blue chin tattoo, a symbol of survival and identity that stayed with her forever. At the height of the Wild West, Buffalo Bill's Wild West show thrilled crowds with shooting, horses, and living legends of the West. Its biggest performance took place at the Chicago World's Fair before 18,000 people. Like many ventures of that time, the show did not survive the downturn and closed in 1913, marking the end of an era. Large shows with staged gunfights were seen as common entertainment. Buffalo Bill turned this culture into a show, bringing together top marksmen and cowboys. Figures like Johnny Baker, Coyote Bill, Jess Willard, and even Annie Oakley thrilled audiences. In Anadarko, Oklahoma, in 1901, crowds took part in land auctions, symbols of American expansion. These new towns were born from dreams of prosperity and the search for space, pushing the western frontier forward. In the Wild West, living outside the law was common. A photograph of Jesse James, taken in 1864 in Missouri, shows him at 16 before he became one of America's most famous outlaws, a symbol of a time when defying authority was part of frontier life. Among great indigenous leaders of the Wild West, Geronimo stood out as a warrior and healer of the Bedonkohe Apache. He united different bands against American and Mexican forces to defend his people. After years of resistance, he was captured and taken to Fort Sill, where he lived as a prisoner. Among many Wild West saloons, the Kramer Saloon in Monroe County, Michigan, offered a curious picture of the time. Without refrigeration or pasteurization, beer was served warm, between 55 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and had to be drunk quickly before it went flat. It was a simple custom, but common in taverns that brightened Western nights. Among the best-known Wild West names, General George Custer stood out as a war hero before meeting his fate at Little Bighorn. Outnumbered by about 3,500 native warriors, his army of only 600 men was quickly surrounded and defeated. During an expedition to the Black Hills in 1874, General George A. Custer and Colonel William Ludlow posed with the first grizzly bear they hunted. As settlers moved in, these animals were killed for safety or status. In the Wild West, such hunts were seen as normal shows of bravery and control over nature. During the Wild West, the Long Walk of the Navajo in 1873 marked one of the hardest periods for this people. A photo near Fort Defiance, New Mexico, shows families displaced toward Bosque Redondo, a journey that left deep scars and shaped Navajo identity. The village of Brule in South Dakota shows a Lakota camp shortly after the surrender at Wounded Knee. The lined-up tipis reflect a moment of transition and cultural resistance. Scenes like this show Native peoples trying to keep their traditions amid changes forced by expansion. In 1907, in the American countryside, a cow had the task of taking 7 children to school each day. In rural Wild West areas where horses were scarce and roads were poor, improvising was part of daily life. Stories like this show how simple and creative living was seen as normal at that time. Apache spirit dancers performed sacred rituals to honor the mountain spirits. Each outfit and adornment represented a spiritual being, and each movement told part of an ancestral story. Recorded in 1887, this tradition remains alive among Apache peoples, preserving centuries of culture and spirituality. In the mid-1860s, riders crossed wide plains with no tracks or paved roads. Delivering letters became routine, something that seems strange today, but in the Wild West, it was just another day of work. Recording life in the Wild West was a difficult task, and photographer Timothy H. O'Sullivan stood out for doing it in a pioneering way. With a mobile darkroom carried by 4 mules across the Carson Sink in Nevada, he captured unique images of the landscape and daily frontier life. In 1871, journalist Fred W. Loring was photographed in San Bernardino, California, before leaving on an expedition. Known for books and reports, Loring represents young adventurers who cross the West seeking stories and new beginnings. In the Wild West, bathing was a rare luxury. Cowboys spent months driving cattle and used any creek to wash. Lack of hygiene was common and often caused illness among workers on long trail routes. Among the figures who helped show the Wild West to the world was Myman, a Mojave man who worked as a guide and interpreter in the 1870s. With photographer Timothy O'Sullivan, he explored harsh lands and made historic Western records possible. During the Wild West era, Terry's Texas Rangers became one of the most respected regiments of the American Civil War. Formed in 1861, they fought in more than 275 engagements across 7 states, earning fame for discipline and bravery. At the end of the conflict in 1865, they surrendered with the Army of Tennessee. In Sun River, Montana, in 1910, a young woman feeds her chickens, a simple and common Wild West scene. Life on the plains was lonely, with distant farms and little contact, demanding resilience and independence from those seeking a new start. Other figures also left deep marks, like Ned Christie, a Cherokee leader wrongly accused in 1887 of attacking a federal deputy. Hunted for years and judged guilty by mistake, his true story was recognized decades later. Today, he is remembered as a symbol of courage and resistance in the Wild West. In the Wild West, even nature gave no rest. Sandstorms like the one recorded in Midland, Texas in 1884 covered entire towns and scared travelers. These events, along with tornadoes and strong winds, made frontier life even more challenging. In 1888, the people of Deadwood, South Dakota, celebrated the arrival of the railroad that linked the town to the rest of the country. The event marked progress and the end of isolation for many frontier communities. In the Wild West, openings like this symbolized hope and growth, reasons for great celebration in pioneer towns. The image of Deadwood, Dakota, in 1876 shows the excitement of the gold rush, which began with the find at Sutter's Mill, California. More than 300,000 people moved in search of fortune, transforming the region and creating many boom towns. In 1881, the case of George Big Nose Parrott gained wide attention in Wyoming. After being captured, he was subjected to drastic measures that marked local memory. Objects tied to the episode were kept for their historical value, showing how justice decisions could be immediate and severe at the time. Photographed in Hazen, Nevada in 1905, this saloon represents the social heart of the Wild West. The first opened in 1822 in Wyoming and soon spread across the frontier, serving as bar, gambling hall, and meeting place for travelers. In the Wild West, names like Belle Starr, known as the Bandit Queen, were part of daily life. After marrying the Cherokee Sam Starr, she took part in robberies and smuggling, becoming one of the most feared women in the West. Among authentic Wild West figures, Charlie Nebo stood out for living as a true frontiersman. Alongside Nicholas Janis, he represented the real cowboy, simple, hardworking, and without exaggeration. The note on the photo read, "The real cowboy captured alive," a symbol of a genuine life on Western lands. At the turn of the 19th century, scenes like this were common in the Wild West, travelers pausing on long journeys toward new lands. Migration was a natural part of American life, driven by hope for a fresh start. Exploring the Wild West meant facing the unknown, and few showed this better than Kit Carson. At 16, he was already crossing the Rocky Mountains as a hunter and scout, helping to map the path to the west. Taken in Genesee, Kansas in 1902, this photograph shows a true cowboy driving cattle with a rope in hand. Despite legends, cowboy life was tiring and lonely, filled with long rides and little rest, a faithful picture of common Wild West routine. Among the best-known Wild West figures, Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson symbolize courage and justice on the frontier. Earp became famous for the fight at the OK Corral with his brothers and Doc Holliday against 4 outlaws. Masterson stood out in 1874 when he fought in the Second Battle of Adobe Walls. Amid the wide plains that shaped life in the West, Sioux teepee rose, belonging to Dakota and Lakota peoples. Spread across the landscape, these light structures kept families safe from heat and cold. Practical and portable, they fit the nomadic way of life that defined the free spirit of the Sioux. Canyon de Chelly in Arizona shows striking rock walls and old Navajo dwellings. The site was a spiritual center and natural refuge for many tribes that resisted American expansion. Landscapes like this were part of daily Wild West life, mixing beauty, isolation, and survival. Shoshone Falls on the Snake River in Idaho were known as the Niagara of the West. At more than 200 feet high, they impressed explorers and photographers who crossed the region. In the Wild West, grand landscapes like this symbolized both nature's challenge and the draw of the frontier. Among extreme western landscapes, Death Valley in California was one of the most challenging and hottest places on Earth, reaching 134 degrees Fahrenheit. During the gold rush of 1849, it became known for the dangerous crossings of pioneers. In the 1870s, Gold Hill thrived with silver and gold mining near the famous Comstock lode. The town bustled with miners, merchants, and saloons running day and night. In the Wild West, places like this symbolized the rush for quick wealth, a way of life seen as normal on the expanding frontier. At the height of the Wild West, towns like Eureka in Utah rose almost overnight with silver and other strikes. Founded in 1870, it held nearly 4,000 residents, a symbol of mining optimism. When the mines ran out, the rush stopped, and today, Eureka remains quiet. In Dodge City in 1878, a huge store of buffalo hides shows how this trade was a core part of the Wild West economy. Mass gathering and storage of hides reveal a time when natural resources were exploited as routine. It was a less glamorous but common side of the frontier. Before bars and stores appeared, supply caravans traveled trails to remote mining camps. These freight trips were already part of Wild West routine. Constant resupply kept mining booms alive. Taking photographs in the Wild West was a real event, and cowboys made sure to pose with pride. In this scene, 3 men show their guns, a symbol of power and status at the time. Interestingly, even in the so-called lawless West, there were limits on carrying weapons, and not everyone had legal permission to carry them. Known as Rose Dunn, or Rose of Cimarron, she fell in love with the outlaw George Bittercreek Newcomb. Their romance ended in tragedy when Rose's own brothers captured him to claim the reward, an example of how loyalty and survival mixed in the Wild West. The Buffalo Soldiers were regiments formed by African Americans after 1866. The name was given by native peoples who admired their bravery in the Indian Wars. These soldiers played a vital role in the expansion and defense of the frontier, and 23 of them received the Medal of Honor for heroic deeds. Built in 1872, this was the first house in Dodge City, Kansas, a town that became a Wild West symbol. Visited by figures like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, it grew quickly, becoming the stage for legends and gunfights that marked American history. A family heads west in a wagon in Nebraska in 1886, seeking new land and opportunity. Migration was routine in the Wild West, a symbol of hope and constant change. Living on wheels became normal for many pioneers moving into the unknown. Belle Starr, a female outlaw posing with a gun at the end of the 19th century, shows that not only men shaped the frontier. Joining a life of crime or adventure was, for some, part of daily normal life in the Wild West. This image challenges myths and reflects the true diversity of the time. In places where the federal government was slow to arrive, settlers gathered to set rules and settle disputes. Informal forums and neighbor agreements were normal in the Wild West. Local justice adapted to the isolated frontier reality. In Hot Springs, Arkansas, a new masonry public bathhouse was built to offer baths to those in need and to visitors, a symbol of leisure and healing in the Wild West. Bathing in hot springs was seen as normal for cure and rest in frontier regions, part of popular routine. Bartenders served drinks in busy saloons, the essential meeting places in frontier towns. Deals, games, and even fights were discussed there, with glasses clinking and music in the background. In the Wild West, these bars were the social heart of communities, places as common as sunrise in the desert. Photographed in Encinal, Texas, in 1905, this scene shows men hauling water with the help of mules, essential for work and travel. In the arid West, dealing with water scarcity was a constant daily challenge. In the Wild West, 12-year-old Santiago Jimmy McKinn was taken by a group of Chiricahua Apaches led by Geronimo. He adapted to the new life and came to consider the Apaches his family, even becoming one of their war leaders, something seen as part of the West's unlikely stories. Among the most legendary figures of the Wild West was James Butler Wild Bill Hickok, famous for his aim and courage. Although tales claim he took more than 100 lives, records show only 6 or 7 real duels. His path ended tragically when he was surprised and shot during a poker game. Photographs of many men with wide hats, rifles, and cartridge belts show that carrying guns was not an exception. It was a habit for many at that time. This routine of gun possession was a normal part of Wild West life. Men from China faced hard trails to build railroads across the Wild West. Their presence became essential to connect regions and ease transport. Railroads and multicultural labor were already core parts of American expansion. At the end of the 19th century, photographer John C. H. Grabble recorded daily life in the Wild West, sending 188 photos to the Library of Congress. He documented growth in South Dakota, Wyoming, and Colorado while working for railroads and mines, a craft that marked history but harmed his health due to mercury exposure. Buying or claiming land was part of the experience of those who moved west. Land auctions and lots were routine in the Wild West, marked by a search for freedom and property. Land was a promise, and fighting for pieces of it was normal. On newly extended tracks, cars carried prisoners across the wide western borders. Moving inmates between territories joined the railroad to the justice system of the time. It was the law moving across the western landscape. Peoples such as the Dakota and Lakota raised cone-shaped teepees that fit their mobile life on the wide plains. This scene shows the routine of indigenous communities adapted to land and weather. In the Wild West, mobility was also normal for many groups. A standoff between the mayor and saloons led to an armed siege, with figures like Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp present. In a few days, the conflict ended without loss of life, but the mobilization of armed men in the square showed how such confrontations were accepted or normal in the Wild West. For many residents, seeing the town under siege was just another frontier chapter. Older brother of Wyatt Earp, Virgil Earp was a deputy, a Civil War veteran, and a central figure in the famous OK Corral gunfight in 1881. Known for his sense of duty, he kept the law even amid Tombstone's violence and chaos. Men like Virgil represented the fragile but necessary authority that was part of daily Wild West life. Known for a calm manner and precise aim, Texas Jack Vermillion was an ally of Wyatt Earp and took part in the famous Vendetta ride after the OK Corral gunfight. Before that, he served as a soldier and moved through many frontier towns, always living between law and risk. Ox caravans were used to move heavy loads along the dusty trails of Sturgis, South Dakota. These slow but strong animals were key for trade and supplies in new towns. In the Wild West, long lines of oxen-pulling wagons were an everyday and essential frontier sight. The old mission church in Zuni Pueblo, New Mexico, symbolizes the meeting of native cultures and European influences. Built on older ruins, it held Catholic rites and local traditions side by side. In the Wild West, this blend of faith and resilience was common in indigenous communities under American rule. Recorded in 1886 on the banks of the Nueces River in Texas, the image shows Apache warriors sent into exile after surrendering to General Miles. Even driven from their lands, they kept fighting for survival and rights, a recurring Wild West reality. With advancing technology in the Wild West came the ambrotype, one of the first forms of photography. Created in the 1850s, it stood out for being quick, affordable, and producing sharp images on glass. For about 10 years, it preserved faces and scenes of the frontier until it was replaced by the tintype, more practical and durable. With the rush for wealth in the Wild West, many sought fortune in gold, silver, and copper mining. Those who owned the mines made the biggest profits, but even prospectors dreamed of luck. Few found anything of value, since rough tools and harsh conditions made success almost impossible in the Western mountains. But the Wild West also had festive moments. During the gold rush, dance halls became social centers, evolving from simple tents to luxurious spaces. In 1909, elegant women gathered before the Klondike Dance Hall in Seattle, showing the glamorous side of an era marked by hardship. Life outside the law also had female faces. Laura Bullion, the famed Rose of the Wild Bunch, was part of Butch Cassidy's gang, took part in robberies and daring escapes, but after serving time left crime and lived quietly in Memphis until 1961. Not all images from this period have explanations. A mysterious 19th century photograph shows a masked young woman beside an enigmatic figure. A record without date, without origin, and full of questions that still intrigues historians and onlookers. But not everything in the West was only law and crime. There was also diversity. The Wild West was a large cultural mosaic formed by European and Asian immigrants and formerly enslaved people. 1 in 4 cowboys was African American, although Hollywood ignored this fact. Heroes like Bass Reeves, who arrested more than 3,000 criminals, showed the true face of the American frontier. The rapid growth of towns in the Wild West increased the demand for nightlife and adult entertainment. Many women in vulnerable situations, immigrants, and members of minority groups entered this work to survive. During the Wild West period, indigenous peoples faced many conflicts and forced removals. Fights over land and westward expansion deeply changed their communities and ways of life. This process marked one of the hardest phases in American history, leaving effects that still echo today. Towns like Dodge City in Kansas became icons of a turbulent West. Between 1876 and 1885, historical estimates point to a lethality near 165 per 100,000. Outlaws like Jesse James became legends in a time when risk was part of daily life. Life in the Wild West was driven by survival. Rules were flexible, justice happened in the streets, and comfort was rare. Duels, scarce bathing, and extreme customs reflected the values of a time when each day lived was a victory. Spiritual figures also played important roles. In Alaska, an Inuit healer, photographed in 1890, carried out rituals to ward off illness and protect the community, a reminder that spiritual knowledge was vital for survival in the cold northern lands. In the Minnesota River Valley, families fled farms during the Dakota War of 1862, seeking safety in forts and nearby towns. Wagon convoys, improvised guards, and temporary shelters became routine. In the Wild West, forced movements like these were common during tense periods between settlers and native peoples. John Henry Doc Holliday was known both as a dentist and for his fame as a gambler and gunman. A close friend of Wyatt Earp, he was marked by the OK Corral gunfight and by his nomadic life between saloons and poker tables. Figures like him symbolized the kind of controversial character common and even admired in the Wild West. Nicholas and Virginia Earp, parents of Wyatt Earp, raised 8 children while traveling through many states toward western frontiers. Nicholas worked as a farmer and law officer, guiding the family through a hard and unstable life. For them, living armed and facing challenges was simply a normal part of Wild West routine.